this first section of notes, we're going to go over some basic vocabulary relating to statistics. You'll notice all throughout the semester, we're going to be focusing on two main concepts. We're going to be focusing on the idea, obviously, of data, so just any observations that are collected. This could be done in lots of ways. You as a student in a capstone course. It could be data collected by smart devices, on elections, on coronavirus, all kinds of things. And then naturally, we expect when we collect data there to be variation. We don't expect the same response for every individual. We want to look at trends in this variation and also any variation that may be unexpectedly large compared to the whole. So we're going to first talk about variables and distinguish different types of variables. But first, by variables, all we mean is characteristics that might be described by your data. So for example, if I asked you guys, okay, let's find out some information about one another, what kinds of things might you be interested in? Usually people respond with things like maybe age, maybe your major, maybe your hometown, maybe your, I don't know, how much you got in scholarship, maybe your favorite food, and maybe something like, I don't know, we'll do something generic, your height. Okay, so we can find all that kind of information from you guys. And when we have that information, we might be interested in summarizing it. So for example, age, how could I summarize age with one numerical summary for the whole class? You might be familiar with things like finding the average age, or maybe even the median of the ages, or maybe the mode, the most common age. We'll be using the mean a lot this semester, so let's focus on that for a moment. I might talk about the average age to summarize all ages. What if we looked at major? Could I talk about the average major? Now that wouldn't make any sense. There's no way I could add psychology plus mathematics plus marine science plus exercise sports science plus Intel and divide by 4 or 5, however many I just said. That wouldn't make any sense. So age, we could calculate the mean. Major, I can't describe with an average or mean, but I could talk about the proportion in each group. So different types of variables have different types of summaries. So let's take a moment and define our two different types of variables. So first type of variable, and again, you've probably heard of some of these, is this idea of quantitative data. And you might think of this as numerical data. So quantitative data describes a quantity, as the name suggests. And an example of that might be a weight, for example. My son just did his Pinewood Derby competition, his first one, and they had to weigh their cars before they could race. So weight is an example of a quantitative or numerical variable. The other type, you might be familiar with it, called qualitative. That's a very broad terminology. We're going to use something a little more specific to what we mean here, categorical. And by categorical, you think it has categories. And here I'll just say it describes a quality. So, I don't know, sticking with the Pinewood Derby theme, example might be the color of the Pinewood Derby car. Okay, so quantitative variables describe a quantity, might make sense to talk about averages there. Categorical variables describe a quality, and you might look at the proportions or percentage in each category group there. So going back up here, let's identify each of these as quantitative or categorical. So age, take a moment, jot down what you think age would be. Age should be quantitative because it's describing how many years you have, a quantity. Major falls in different categories. So this one would be categorical. I'm just going to abbreviate these if that's okay. Hometown, right? Categorical. How much money you have in scholarships, be quantitative, if we're talking about the amount of money. Your favorite food, probably categorical. And then height, quantitative. All right, so make sure that you're really comfortable with this idea of identifying the difference between quantitative and categorical variables, because that will determine how we analyze everything from here on out. A simple step, but very, very important.